Your mind is drifting back to that house you saw on realtor.com. The yard was lush and green. The living room was spacious enough for the kids to run around and you still watch TV. And oh my God, don't get me started on that kitchen. I'm gonna help you make that dream a reality. Hey, I'm Stephanie Lankowski, and I sell residential real estate with Taylor Allen Properties in Destin, Florida. Today, I'm going to talk about 7 things that you should be doing before you even start daydreaming about that new home. Buying a home or an investment property is a really lengthy process. It has a lot of very tiny and huge details that have to be hammered out. You know, the first thing we normally do when we start daydreaming about buying a new house is we get on our phone and we get on all the fun apps that are out there. I'm gonna drop realtor.com because it's one of the better ones, and we start searching for houses. Bet that you're like me and you get so excited. Like, I start falling in love with the houses and I turn to look at my husband and say, this is the one. This is what we're gonna get, you know? And we start falling in love with the characteristics of a house before we even really know how much we can afford and what that process looks like. So today I'm gonna talk about 7 things you should be doing before you even start house shopping. So step number 1 is to check your credit report. That's right. So your credit score is going to be one of the major, if not the major factor in determining whether you qualify for a home loan. So there are 3 major credit bureaus that your mortgage lender is going to look at. It's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Most of these, I know Equifax at least gives a free link to get a free credit report. And what you want to do is you want to go on, you want to check and see how your credit score is. And then if there are any transgressions, any wrong, any mistakes on there, you can start working on fixing those. Or if your credit score is not as high as you want it to be, you can start talking with a lender about how to improve that before you even apply for your loan. So why is it important? Well, your credit score tells a mortgage lender how credit worthy you are, how trustworthy you are, right, with your money. And secondly, the better your score, the better your mortgage loan. More money in your pocket. So now that you know your credit score and you've got it up to speed on all mistakes and you're bringing it up to as best as your possible ability, now you're going to firstly protect that credit score like a mama bear. You are not going to let anyone pull a credit report check on you. When they ask, and they do have to ask by law, you are going to say, no, don't pull my credit. So the reason is that every time that your credit is pulled, it puts a ding against your credit score and actually can lower it. This does not count for you pulling your free credit report from one of the 3 main bureaus. One time a year you can do this. But when, for instance, so let me give you a for instance of how you're going to do this. So when you talk to your mortgage lender and to get a pre-approval, they're going to want to pull your credit. And you're going to say, hey, no, not just yet. I'm really just looking right now, but I'll let you know when I'm ready for you to pull my credit. And then you're going to gather all your mortgage lenders, which I want you to at least have 3 people that you're talking to compare all of the different details of a mortgage and fees along with that. And then when you're really ready and you kind of have an idea of what you're looking at, you're going to call all 3 of them and say, okay, now I'm ready for the pre-approval, pull my credit. You have authority. And what's going to happen is that the credit bureaus are going to see this. They're going to see a lump together within a short period of time, similar industries pulling your credit, and they're going to go, yeah, they're shopping for a house. And it's not going to impact your credit score. Tip number 3 is be on time with your payments. So your payment history is pretty much the largest factor in your credit trustworthiness. Underwriters heavily look on this factor. Anything that is past 30 days overdue is a pretty big ding on your credit report. It's going to stay there for almost 7 years. So, not that I've done this a lot, but the few times that I have been late for whatever reason, as soon as I figure out that I'm late on a payment, I pick up the phone and I call that organization and I say, hey, this is really rare for me. I really don't want this on my credit. How can I make it right? Can you please not report it? Make it right. So with your credit score, consistency is really the key for underwriters. Not only do they want to see those payments being consistent within your life, from your credit cards to, your electricity bill, your car payment, but they also want to see a steady income. So if you can avoid it, don't get a new job or switch a new job within a year of planning to buy a new home. I know sometimes that can't be avoided. If it can't be avoided, there's going to be a pretty significant need to communicate with your new employer and look into your future income. And also, this applies with, for instance, any income like a rental home. So if you have a rental home that's not been receiving income rents for a whole year consistently, that's still going to be considered a debt versus an asset in an underwriter's spreadsheet. Okay, step number 5 is going to be to avoid all big expenses. Let's hold off on buying your boats, your new truck or car, or any other significant expense. Why? Well, let's go back to step number 2. You don't want anybody pulling your credit report. Just say no. No, Mr. Carman, I'm just looking today. I don't want you to pull my credit and see what I can afford to pay. Thank you, though. Secondly, we're going to talk about debt to income ratio. So when you're applying for that mortgage loan, the underwriter is going to look at, based off your gross income, so how much you're bringing in and how much you're consistently spending each month, to determine how much you qualify for. So it's best if you limit the debt that you have, any new debt coming in at this point. Also to note, this doesn't stop when you start the loan application process. You got under contract for a house, you've applied for the loan, please still wait. That almost 30 days typically until you get to that closing table is the most vulnerable time for your credit. It is still not the time to go buy that new car. Wait until you close and sign on the dotted line and talk with your lender and say, am I good to go? Your lender's going to be one of your new best friends. So step number 6 is don't open or close any lines of credit. So most of you, or everybody, is pretty aware that opening a new credit card, for instance, is going to have a big impact on your credit score and your debt to income ratio. But most people aren't aware that closing a credit card, for instance, can also have just as big of an impact on your credit score. So if you're interested in paying down that debt, talk to a lender on how to best and most appropriately do that. But just realize that even closing a credit card can be a ding on that credit score. So finally, step number 7 is to create a paper trail for any new large deposits. So an underwriter that sees anything over $1,000 that is unaccounted for, just randomly showed up in your account, is gonna need a paper trail. And so this actually happened with a customer of mine. She was in the loan process in a contract for a house, and she received a really nice surprise of an inheritance check. And here we are both thinking, woohoo, extra money for your down payment. And thank God for her. I mean, it did turn out that way, that she was able to use that. But that chunk of change that she deposited into her account became a huge red flag and a pretty big headache in her loan process. And she had to be able to trace and provide some pretty personal information as to how she came into that money and account for it. So while it worked out for this, I just want you to be aware, make a paper trail. Keep the receipts, keep the deposits, keep any letters explaining why you might be receiving a chunk of change. Nobody wants to get to the end of this process and have their mortgage loan denied. So I hope that for you guys, that you can use these steps and help avoid that and bring that home you've been daydreaming about to a reality. Click on the link below for your free home buyer's guide. See you next Thursday.